Really steps. Clock or the computer clock? 6:30. So which clock do we go by this?
We can go. We're good.
All right,
Okay,
we're gonna
your
call
choice.
this party to order, please. I hereby call the Architectural Review Board meeting of February 22nd, 2023 to order. Roll call, please.
Chair Hiller,
Present.
Member Stanaway,
Present?
Member Gaynor. Can you hear us online?
I can. This
Okay.
is Matt with.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I had some issues last time, with the audio, so. Member Goodell
Here.
and Member Bellows. Okay.
Commissioner Gaynor or Board Member Gaynor, can you hear us?
Is he muted?
He is muted, but if he can't hear us, then he wouldn't know to ask him to unmute.
Need the chat.
Hello.
Hello.
There.
Hey, sorry, I've got my two kids in the other room, so I was stretched right to the last minute here. Forgive me.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, is there any communication from the public regarding items not on the agenda?
One from the public is present. Sure.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Okay. Okay, the next item is a public hearing on an architectural review application, AR 22-0008, submitted by CR Alden Communities LLC, requesting approval to construct 45 new townhome units at the existing Alden Apartments located at 7800 Southwest Sagert Street and 20400 Southwest Martinazzi Avenue. The public hearing this evening will be conducted as follows. One, staff report. Do I stop? Do you want to do this?
No, you'll.
Read the whole thing. Yeah, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you very much. Staff report. Two, entry of additional correspondence received into the record. Three, questions by the Architectural Review Board of Staff. Four, opening the public hearing for testimony in the following order. One, or A, applicant, applicant's representative, B, proponents, C, neutral testimony, D, opponents, E, rebuttals by applicant or representative. Number five, closing of the public hearing. Number six, no other comments will be heard from the public or the applicant unless a question is asked by the hearing body. Seven, questions of staff, if any, by the Architectural Review Board. Eight, discussion by the Architectural Review Board. A decision may be made by the Architectural Review Board at the close of the hearing, or the matter may be continued to a time and date certain in the future. If the matter is reset to a time and date certain in the future, this will be the only notice of that date you receive. Testimony. If you wish to speak, please wait for me to ask for testimony and raise your hand or select the raise hand button in Zoom if you are joining us virtually. I will recognize those people wishing to speak. Any questions should be addressed through me. Please state both your name and address for the record when you come to the podium, as the hearing will be recorded. Please keep testimony concise and to the point. For the deliberations tonight, the applicant substantive criteria are listed in the findings. These are the criteria the Architectural Review Board must use in making its decisions. All testimony and evidence must be directed towards these criteria or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or other land use regulations which the person testifying believes apply to the decision. Please relate any testimony to the listed criteria. The application before the Architectural Review Board this evening must be decided based on these criteria. Despite the importance of other issues that may be raised during the public hearing, the authority of the Architectural Review Board is limited to those issues that address compliance with the applicable criteria. Failure to raise an issue with sufficient specificity to afford the Architectural Review Board and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the Architectural Review Board to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Disclosure. At this time, I ask the members of the Architectural Review Board to disclose any ex parte contacts, bias, or conflicts of interest. Please indicate the nature and extent of the ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest, and indicate whether you intend to participate in or abstain from the hearing. Does any member of the audience, is there any?
None. Nope.
Pat? No?
Oh, none for me.
And,
He's the only commissioner.
excuse me, thank you. Thank you very much. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge any Architectural Review Board members' lack of impartiality? Good, thank you. All right. Okay, city staff will now present the staff report.
You, Chair Hillier, while Lindsay gets this loaded. For the record, my name is Steve Cooper. I'm the Assistant Community Development Director here at the city. I'm also just noting that Keith Leonard, our Associate Planner, worked a considerable amount on the materials that you have tonight, but wasn't able to be here, so I'm making the presentation, but just want to give credit to him for all the work that he did. So we're here tonight to discuss AR 22-0008, the Alden Apartments, adding additional units to the existing development. So tonight's presentation will go through some site background and overview of the project, outline briefly the applicable criteria, and then come to conclusion and recommendation. So site background, the applicant 3J Consulting on behalf of Coleridge Communities is requesting approval to construct 45 new attached townhomes within 12 buildings. This also includes demolishing 2 buildings and 30 units. So it's, or excuse me, 15 units, so it's a net gain of 30 units and removal of a basketball court. The applicant has proposed constructing 4 3-unit buildings, 7 4-unit buildings, and 1 5-unit building. There will be 8 new carports constructed and placed within the existing parking lot, containing a total of 132 off-street parking spaces for the new development, and then a total of 361 off-street parking spaces existing for a total of 442. And then there will be 5 outdoor play areas to serve the residents living in all the apartments. And that gives an overview of the site plan, highlighting the features that I just went through.
Okay,
So here we have the various dates associated with compliance with the technical review criteria for the type 3 architectural review. I'm not going to read through all of them, but suffice it to say the findings demonstrate that those criteria were met. The actual architectural review criteria in PDC chapter 33 include approval criteria for meeting the standards of chapter 33A through G, which includes site design standards, landscaping standards, parking standards, and then waste and recyclable standards. And then conditions of approval include implementation of identified and needed public facilities and services, which is based on findings for chapters 74 and 75. Jumping into the actual approval criteria themselves, also under chapter 33, addresses tree removal. And so in conjunction with the architectural review application and approval request, the applicant has proposed tree removal as part of the record. A tree removal preservation plan and arborist report are included as exhibit A3. There are 49 trees with a diameter of 8 inches at breast height that are or greater that are proposed for removal, and then 2 smaller trees. Those are all either in conflict with the proposed new improvements on the site or in poor health, which either or are justifiable criteria for removal under our code. And then in the final order, there are recommended conditions of approval that relate to tree protection fencing to preserve the remaining trees. On the side here are a summary of the applicable criteria under chapter 42, which includes the citing standards for the zone, which is residential medium high density. And so the proposal complies with the zoning for permitted uses, which multifamily land uses are permitted in this zone outright without any additional conditional use permits or the like. The proposed buildings and development meet setbacks and building height for the zone as shown on the table on the right-hand side of the slide. Jumping over to TDC chapter 73A, which has the site design criteria. And so the proposal complies with the requirements for these various standards listed here. Again, I'm not going to read through all of them, but the findings in the staff report demonstrate compliance with each. Some of the subsequent slides will summarize some of these as well. Turning to the building design objectives of 73A. So you have here some architectural elevations for the newly proposed buildings. The goal of chapter 73 is to promote functional, safe, innovative, and attractive buildings that are compatible with the surrounding environment. And so as you'll see on the next couple of slides that highlight some of the existing surrounding development, including the actual existing development itself and some other development, I think that you'll find that this building design typology fits in rather nicely with it. Pitched roof and facade treatments draw your eye vertically and are similar to other development found nearby. So here's the Alden Apartments existing front and rear. Martinazzi Village to the south. Adjacent or nearby office building kind of similar materials. Dalton Methodist Church, and then single family home, kind of similar pitched roof and siding color and design. Chapter 73B of the Development Code provides for landscaping standards that includes requirements for tree preservation, automatic irrigation systems, revegetation of disturbed areas, following development, and then minimum standards for plantings. And so those are things like the size of trees and shrubs and other various standards, and then the percentage of site that needs to be landscaped. Not going to go too deeply into that, but again, suffice it to say that the findings include conclusions of each applicable subsection of these standards. Parking standards, so I kind of already gave the overview of how much parking is being added and then how much parking is being provided total, but here's a reiteration of it. Includes some information also about the required bicycle parking. And because these units are going to have garages, there's bicycle parking within them rather than having it in a different location. And then there's some other standards. Again, the findings demonstrate compliance with it. I'll also just note that most of the existing things like drive aisles and parking lot landscaping and so forth are existing. And so they've already been reviewed and vetted. And so to the extent that the applicant is actually developing the area, we've demonstrated compliance with those standards in the findings. There's just an additional note about clear vision standards under 210.2. And so just noting that that will be required to be met through final plan review. I don't know if it was demonstrated for certain to be met before, but that's the kind of thing that we look at in our final plan review, is conditioning these type of requirements and then ensuring that they're complied with through final building design. And then waste and recycle standard, chapter 73D. This is a very long chapter if you've ever taken a look at it, but won't get too deeply into it. Just there's different ways of complying with those standards. And so the minimum storage area is the method for compliance with this chapter that the applicant has selected. And so that includes from Republic Services, the franchised waste and recycling hauler for this area, a letter indicating that they concur with this method applicable to this development. And then finally, in the TDC, we have requirements for public improvements under chapter 74 and then access management on chapter 75. Starting with chapter 75 first and kind of working our way backwards. It's worth noting that there's not any new proposed access points with this development. There are existing access points already there. And so those standards are met because no additional driveways are proposed. And then applicable right-of-way and public utility easements and things like that have been required through the conditions of approval in order to meet chapter 74, the public improvement standards. There's some limited amount of street improvements that are also conditioned, and then standard conditions related to potable water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater management. And then last but not least, grading and erosion control standards to comply with the city's MS4 permit requirements through Clean Water Services and the state DEQ are also applied to the development. And so that is the conclusion of my presentation. As I've mentioned at various points through, the findings of fact that you have in your packet demonstrate that the proposal meets the applicable approval criteria of the Tualatin Development Code as conditioned. And so therefore staff is respectfully recommending that the Architectural Review Board approve the subject application, which is AR 22-0008 as conditioned. And with that, we are happy to take questions if there are any from the board, and if not, we'll cede our control over to the applicant to make their presentation. We'll remain available for questions.
Thank you. We'll start with folks or with board member Gaynor. Do you have any? No.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions at this time for staff.
No question.
Great, thank you. Okay, correspondence. Have we received any correspondence on this matter other than those items included in the agenda materials?
Good enough.
Thank you. So we'll move into public testimony. The applicant may now present the proposal. Are there any questions of the applicant by the Architectural Review Board? We'll hold those till the end and go with that.
Yeah.
Go back to those.
Thank you. There we go.
Maybe just before you share it, if you pop it open and put it in presentation mode in the PowerPoint.
Like, I like closed it out. but it was weird.
Maybe it's open already. Good.
I'm at the bottom. No. Find the right one.
I don't think so.
Hard on a single screen. All right, now it should work if you put it in presentation mode.
There we go. There. Thanks for
There we
patience. Always technology. Now.
Like it wants a snow day.
All right, my name is Mercedes Sarah. I'm a senior planner with 3J Consulting here representing the applicant. Our address is 9600 Southwest Nimbus Avenue, Suite 100, Beaverton, Oregon, 97008. The applicant, Flourish Construction, is proposing 45 new townhomes that will be constructed in 12 new buildings and added to the existing Alden apartment community. The proposal includes the removal of 2 existing buildings for a net gain of 10 buildings on the site and a total gain of 30 units. Members of the project team are here tonight to help answer questions that you may have. The site is a medium high density residential zone. The adjacent properties are zoned commercial, medium low density residential, medium high density residential, and the freeway. Full site is, 16.7 acres. It says 16.7 acres in size and is located at Southwest Saggart and Martinazzi. With the proposed addition, the total number of units on the site will be 240 with a total density of 14 dwelling units per acre, which falls within the density range for the zone. As stated previously and covered by staff, the residential uses are allowed in the RMH zone and are subject to architectural review. The proposal meets all of the standards for the RMH zone that are applicable to the proposal and connects the proposed townhomes both physically and in style and character to the existing buildings. This is the overall site plan, and zoomed in here is the southwest portion where the new building is proposed in a vacant area of the site, as on the right side there. As well, in the middle of the site is where 2 buildings will be removed. 10 new buildings are proposed. And then finally, nope, In the northern portion of the site, one more building is proposed in a vacant area, bringing the total to 12 buildings. You can see in these photos that play areas will be either enhanced and remain, or new play areas will be added to the site. These perspective images show the general character and massing of the proposed homes. All building design and siting criteria will be confirmed at the time of building permit submittal for each unit. The multifamily landscape standards have been met by the proposal. A total of 7,200 square feet of outdoor area was required, and 83,776 square feet has been provided, with 3,600 square feet of children's play area. Each of the 45 townhome units will have a 2-car garage, and a total of 442 parking spaces will be provided throughout the site, exceeding the minimum requirements of 361. The criteria for off-street parking and loading, parking lot design standards, and parking lot landscaping have been met. The waste and recyclables management standards have been met as well. And as Steve stated, there's a service provider letter obtained from Republic Services that was included in the application. The proposal includes removing 35 trees that are necessary for the proposed improvements, and 4 trees that were identified as having poor crown development or structure or are on the invasive lists. And the proposal has an arborist report that was included in the application documenting these trees. Proposal will extend the current services of utilities from the existing site to the new buildings. This includes sanitary, storm, fire service, domestic water, as shown on the utility plan. And finally, the site currently generates 78 PM peak trips and 104 PM peak trips. The proposed additions will add 16 AM peak trips and 18 PM peak trips. The conditions of approval provided by staff include dedications and improvements on Martinazzi and Avery, as well as a dedication on Saggart. Finally, we want to thank Tualatin staff for their staff report, and thank the Architectural Review Board for your time and consideration this evening. And we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, are there any questions of the applicant by the Architectural Review Board?
Sure, there's always questions.
Oh, good.
I'd like to talk about the architecture. So is your architect, is he
He is
coming
not here
or?
yet. He's stuck in traffic, but we will do our best. And we do have a member of the architectural team.
Oh, on there? Okay, good. Could someone kind of talk through the color scheme and why you're doing what you're doing? So that's one question. So just talk the color scheme a little bit on how it was developed, what it's based upon, and talk about the full development.
Yes, this is Camila Garrido with Dolan Architects. The community in general has a very similar look and color scheme for the existing buildings. And what the client was trying to do is also integrate the new buildings to complement those color schemes with what we're showing in the renderings.
So all the units are the same color?
No, they are. Mercedes, do you have the rendering available there? They vary between a
But the units are all the same,
white color and a darker color.
right? But all
No,
units are
They're
the,
different. They're different floor plans and then different colors as well.
well, for instance, I'm just looking at sheet A3. And yes,
Mhm.
each unit is either white or it's the dark. And so throughout the whole development, there's basically those two colors. I just wanted to clarify. Is that the intent? And if so, what was driven by that?
Yes, on the new buildings, that is the intent. These are the client's preferred colors and also complementary to what's in trend right now as well.
Okay. So it's basically just, that's what the client wanted. So there's no, is there a design reason, an architectural reason to have only two colors?
Like I stated before, basically what we are trying to do is also integrate these buildings into the existing neighborhood and not introduce any like super bright colors, just trying to complement the same characteristics. We did provide two different material application schemes as well. So even though they're the same color in different buildings, they'll be applied in a different manner.
Yeah, no, that's good to have the variation in the material.
Yes.
Do you know what the reveal depth is for the siding? In other words, with the lap siding, you know, what is it? In other words, how much shadow line will you get? Do you know that? Has those been
Yes.
selected?
Yes, we're using a hardy board siding and the thickness is about 2.5 inches. We have the horizontal application and also a vertical application of that type of board.
Okay. Just a question too on the detailing. Where you have the units that are the same color and they basically butt each other. Now on the rendering, it shows basically a line between there. What is the condition there? And are you trying, in other words, will you really have a reveal there that will kind of separate those, or will it be all in one unit with the siding?
We are proposing the siding in the center units to be all along the same plane, but we are proposing to break that up with a downspout in between the units.
Okay, yeah, because that was my next question is how are you handling the, you know, the roof water and the storm water? Because yeah, with that type of density, yeah, the control of that is critical. So
Exactly.
but where are so there's one downspout basically at each valley, right?
Correct.
And then how about on the ends? Is there
On the
one
ends,
on,
we have gables, I believe. So all the water flow will go towards the front or back of the buildings and be piped down to the stormwater system.
well, you've got the gable roof, but so on the edges of those gable roofs, on the end of the units, there's a downspout then that will carry it all the way down the 3 stories?
Yeah, it depends. There's some lower roofs on the second floor decks that it will go on and then transfer down from that second story down to the first.
Well, anyway, I know the rendering doesn't show all that, but you know, the details really
Mhm.
are what make the building successful.
Definitely.
And so I know it's really just care needs to be taken to make sure that those things are looked at, placed in the proper area. Clearly, you know, you have to determine what color they're to be. So anyway, like I said, those are elements that can make or break the success of a project. And especially if they're well done, it basically provides an upscale of the development. If they're done poorly, it can bring it down. My opinion.
I totally agree. Our intention will be to do a dark color downspout to complement the colors that we're showing on the buildings now.
My other question has to do with the lighting. And I was trying to find one kind of a better description of where the lighting is located, not only for the buildings, but the site. And then also, what is the temperature of those lights? And in looking at the specs, I could not find that, but maybe I missed it. So can someone help me with that?
Yes, I believe we did provide a photometric report. I don't know if you have that, Mercedes.
I don't have it on me.
Yes, no, it's in the packet, so it is. But
Yes.
where are those fixtures located on the buildings?
Right now, we're showing the fixtures on this submittal package at the front elevations near the doors. We have a farmhouse type of fixture right next to the front doors. And in the rears, we'll propose a type of downlight, but we're not showing it currently in our elevations, but the photometrics have that downlight.
Okay, and yeah, the wedge lights, you just have to really watch, especially with the height of those. So again, hopefully you have a lighting designer or somebody that really kind of knows what that light's gonna do. You know, it's one thing photometrics, but obviously you want to eliminate the glare. You don't want to have obviously night sky. Now, I think, your selection of fixtures that you've really tried to address so that you don't have a lot of night sky issues. But certainly the glare, at the people at the ground level, we've all seen it where you have highlights and they're shining down and you look up at all and you get glared and you can't see. So, and that's where, I know you list the lumens. I'm trying to find where the temperature is. Are they
Okay.
4,000, 3,000, 27? What are they?
I will have to get back to you on that detail, but we would propose a downlight that's appropriate for this area right above the garages, not too high on the building.
And then really, I asked that question because what nobody wants is to have the lighting to where, it's a 5,000 Kelvin light and it looks very cold. We don't want blue lights. Everybody likes the lights of what, you see in incandescent. So, it ought to be a 3,500 or a 27, nothing real high, especially when you're at a pedestrian level. So that would be a question that would need, in other words, further information should be provided on what the lighting kelvins are for all the fixtures. And so that way, they're integrated so that they're all the same. So that you don't get some hot, some warm lights, some cool lights, and because that can really impact obviously development too.
Yes,
And
I
then-
noted that.
Okay. And then my other question, let's see here. Well, I know that Pat may have some questions as we get to the landscape. So I do have some landscape questions, but we'll come back to that because others may too. So those are my questions.
Thank you.
Only question I have is, so you're in support of the recommendation and the condition of approval?
Yeah, we're not proposing any changes to those.
Don't have.
Board Member Gaynor, do you have any questions? The applicant?
I looked at the plan set and my biggest thing always is the tree species, making sure that the trees chosen work with the space, work with the architecture, especially with vehicle circulation and large vehicles like deliveries and trash hauler vehicles, often with the high clearance. So, I feel like the trees selected are definitely meeting the criteria that the city expects for longevity and for aesthetic. And I'm pleased to see a diversity of species. I do think that they're cited pretty well. I did see a few areas where landscape shrubs may impact just the safe movement of vehicles throughout the development, we may want to just look to pull some shrubs back away from the corners, especially the major intersections. That way people are seen, cars are seen, and there's no issues with overlap of circulation. So that, I think that'd be my only thing, would be to just kind of take a look at shrubs and make sure they're pulled back a few feet so that anywhere where cars might be slowing or stopping to observe for the next turn movement, they can see clearly what's coming.
Yeah, I have some landscape questions. Sorry. When I look at the caliper of the trees, it seems though everything's a very minimum. I mean, in these areas where you have really these key trees, as I read the drawings, they're 1.5-inch caliber tree. Frankly, and again, I don't know what experience the developers had in the past, but basically, any kind of landscape is going to get a lot of abuse with, these kind of developments, just because there's kids, there's people, there's a lot of pedestrian traffic. And I'm 1.5-inch caliber tree. I don't know how you feel, Pat, but 1.5-inch caliber tree, it's pretty risky that it's gonna last with this type of activity around it. So I would ask that the applicant look at providing some larger caliber trees, some more, larger plant material, because day one, they will get abused just because of the activity around them. And then too, it seems as though the landscape is really very minimal. And so what was the idea or the design kind of concept of the landscape? Is it frankly just to meet code, or are you trying to do something to really enhance the development?
I'll do my best to answer this one. Regretfully, our landscape architect's not here tonight. But my understanding is that we were trying to integrate this in with the rest of the site, which does provide that larger landscaping and outdoor area space for residents. This was to provide sort of a more residential feel of landscaping, connecting between the pathways and providing some wayfinding.
If and I just say, because yes, you can look at the plans, and the plans show, some plantings, but there again, it's always one of those things in development like this, is how many of those plants are going to make it to mature development. Because we all know there's a lot of pedestrian traffic around those. And so again, I would just encourage that. Anyway.
I'm going to interrupt you. But what's the city's methodology of ensuring that the keeping survive?
That's a good question, Board Member Goodell. So we do have a condition of approval A23 that requires all site building and landscaping improvements approved through the AR process must be continually maintained so as to remain substantially similar to the original approval through the AR process, unless they actually go through a formal modification to the landscape. So we do have that requirement that they maintain, that they can't just plants die off, that they would need to replace them.
For how long?
Professional.
Forever? Oh, well, does the city really go around and look? See, that's it. It's a nice thing to say.
Yeah, it's
but-
code enforcement based, so, it relies on someone cleaning. Yes. That's true.
Just to point out,
Yes.
Matt, the applicant there, it looks like he'd like to say something. So he
Okay.
might have an answer about the landscaping.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Is this Matt?
This is Matt.
Okay, yes, we would like to hear from you now,
Can you
please.
can you say your full name and your address for the record, please?
Okay, my name is Matthew Moisey. I don't know if you're looking for my home address, but it's 1780 Kettner Boulevard, Unit 705 in San Diego, California. And I represent the ownership, and I'm sorry I didn't speak earlier. And I just want to give you a little bit of background after I've heard a few comments. I want to apologize for not being there tonight. Usually we make every effort to be there. I think there's no substitute for being there in person. And I also want to apologize for the lead architect who I know right now we've been trading texts. He's stuck in the snow on the freeway and he's not making any time at all. So he's having a rough time. He is trying to get there. And I just want to give you a little background on Coleridge and the ownership. Coleridge is a multifamily owner. We do own one other apartment property in Tualatin called Rivercrest Meadows. We also own about 75 other apartment complexes west of Houston. And we are long-term holders. I consider us a very conscientious owner, and it's typical for us to buy these dated communities, if you will. This one is probably almost one of the newer ones compared to some of our portfolio. And we do our best to enhance the property, both with the amenities that we provide to the residents and just aesthetically in terms of painting and adding articulation and landscaping and all the things and lighting, by the way. So the 3 points well taken that I heard there had to do with colors, lighting, and the caliper of the trees. So I just want to say trees are a blessing and they're also a curse. I mean, when you're owning complexes that are 20 and 30 years old, sometimes these trees overgrow their locations, if you will, and they start swallowing the landscape or swallowing the architecture, lifting sidewalks and creating a nightmare for us. But we'll definitely look at, what we're proposing here in terms of new landscaping. I agree with you 100% on the lighting and the colors. We have an in-house design team here. So I'm sorry I'm not expert on colors, but I can tell you there was thought put into it. And I'm sorry the lead architect is stuck in traffic. So I can tell you that there was thought put into it, even though I'm not doing a very good job of explaining what that thought was. The other, I would say, motivation on us adding these units, and again, it's 30 new units. Right now, this complex is effectively made up of 1 and 2 bedroom units from 598 feet to 970 feet. So what we're doing here is we're just sort of, we're introducing some new product type within the development. And by the way, this new build is really squirreled away within our development. I don't know if it can even be seen from a city street just because of the location on the property. But so what we're doing is we're taking a community with 1 and 2 bedrooms and we're adding 2 bedroom, 2 bath and 3 bedroom, 3 bath units with garages. And in the world of let's say workforce housing, to have a attached garage to your unit is not common, I would say. So we feel like we're elevating the community. We're doing our best to, be good owners and provide housing for the community. Beyond that, I mean, I don't know what else I can say right now. I will try to address your comments as they come, but I'll say thank you for your comments so far. Pulling the shrub back away from the corners definitely agreed. I mean, we live in these communities and we have sort of lived through all the mistakes. So we'll definitely take these points, and I'll just go back to you and you can carry on with your comments. But I just wanted to chime in and give you some background on Coleridge and who we are.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Board Member Gaynor?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to touch on the tree caliper thing. I had my name mentioned earlier. I just wanted to provide a response. In my professional experience and opinion, the smaller the tree caliper inch, the greater the chance of performance and longevity. I've found them outcompete in a head-to-head comparison against 2 and 3 inch caliper trees. The shock to the root system on the larger trees to clip them and ball and burlap them for on-site delivery is what sets them back a growing season or so, whereas the 1.5 inch and smaller trees actually don't have that major structural impact. And so they're able to just start setting new root and they don't have that delay. And so it's a fine balance between the aesthetic of having a great tree on day one and having a tree that's going to perform over the long term. So I don't know if I would support going larger, because the planter strips themselves are very narrow in size. And as you go larger, the root ball becomes exponentially larger. And so it may not fit. And so a smaller tree, like on, Plan West on the main site here, I'm seeing a couple of trees in a very narrow, 3 trees in a very narrow planter. A larger root ball may not be the right choice there, especially with their proximity to the building. If they're smaller on day one, they're going to recognize that there's a structure next to them. They can tell. And so they will naturally avoid. Whereas if we put a larger tree in on day one, we may not have that air gap between the architecture and the vegetation. And therefore, it won't have that ability to grow where it needs to versus just in every direction. So just some cautions, having done these in the past and saying, well, where's the right place to put the tree? Honestly, 20 feet from the building is the ideal offset, I feel, because it would give enough room for the canopy to mature naturally on most tree species, and you wouldn't have the issue of convergence or impact or moss or other things that you typically see in developments over time. So I don't know, just some caution. That's my 2 or 25 cents worth on that one.
Thank you. Does the applicant like to respond to that or?
That makes sense.
Okay, I'm gonna try my questions that I've accumulated here. So mine are more about the play areas. You're removing a basketball court. Was it not used?
I believe there are other courts already, so it was sort of a redundant area. And they will be putting in a more children's play area.
Okay, and so could you explain more, please, what the design of the play area is going to look like? If it's in here, I apologize, I didn't see it, and how you made the decisions for that. And
right, I don't believe that it actually is designed yet. That is one of things that I believe might be in our conditions of approval, to provide that design at the next stage. I don't know if Matt has any input on what that will entail, but it is currently in the works.
okay, and just my next thought about the play areas is I don't know what what the normal operating procedures are, but it sure would be nice to have trees near where the kids' play areas are for them to sit and have a picnic and do the sorts of things. I think I heard someone say that there's more open space to make it more like a residential area. And so if we're going to do that, I would really love to see opportunity for families to then be able to recreate and have a picnic under a tree or I mean, I'm sure this is outside of the scope a little bit, but benches or, just some way to make it feel more that way than just plain open space. And I get that that's a maintenance thing, but those are important things to me and see it in the rest of our parks, and I'd like that to be considered. Okay, are there any other questions or are there any other responses from the applicant? Okay, does anyone wish to speak in favor of the application?
We don't have any members of the public here, so I think we.
I can just skip that.
Skip that part.
Okay, does the applicant wish to provide rebuttal?
No.
Okay, whew, we're moving
We
along.
did get a comment at the last hearing, correct? So that was public record,
That's true, yeah.
right? But I think we answered that in the
Yes.
time, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for bringing that up. Thank you. Does the city staff have anything to add which specifically addresses a question raised during the testimony?
I think just in regards to the question about the shrubbery is that we have condition of approval A10R that requires the final landscape plan to demonstrate corner vision. And so I think that that was identified as a concern. And then in addition to A23, which requires continual maintenance of the landscaping regarding the play area, there's condition of approval A10F, which requires a final plan to be consistent with the requirements of that section of the code. And then there's also the requirement that the applicant provide an additional, so there's 36,000 square feet total on the site of play area, which would include some of the existing area naturally. There's also a shared outdoor area of 72,000 square feet. And so there's specific approval criteria. None of them get as granular as to require the specific features, but I think the applicant has heard that. And I think those seem to me to be fair suggestions. And so we'll work with them through the plan review stage to find a good balance of amenities and features. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, questions of clarification. Does any member of the Architectural Review Board have any questions of staff regarding clarification of the testimony to this point?
None.
Steve did a good job.
Yes, I agree. And yours. Okay, the applicant is allowed at least 7 days after the record is closed to all other parties to submit final written arguments in support of the application. Alternatively, the applicant may waive the 7-day period. Does the applicant choose to waive the additional 7 days?
Just want to check in with Garrett. I think that we would probably waive it, but I'll check.
Hello, everyone. This is Garrett Stevenson, attorney for the applicant. We waive the 7-day open record period. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, the public testimony portion of the hearing is now closed. Okay, are there any further questions of staff from the Architectural Review Board? Okay, is there any discussion by the Architectural Review Board?
Skip wants to talk about building colors or anything else.
No, as always, when I just would always like to understand what is the reason for why the colors are selected.
Mhm.
And frankly, same with the landscape plan too, because it all needs to work together. Because and this is just so you understand kind of how I think. Like on the buildings, you can say, hey, we want the complex to all look like one complex. And so therefore, all the colors are painted together and, it works as one big, huge, giant unit. And so when you go by it, you're going to read it as one big, giant unit. That's how you're going to visualize it versus, varying the color so that way it's more like a neighborhood versus this one development. And so it's just always nice to know what is the design concept, to know what was driving what we see. And so was it done on purpose or is there a reason why? And same with the landscape. I look at this, it appears as though the landscape is exactly the same in every single unit. Okay, well, is that because it was just easy for the landscape it's just easy for the landscape architect to do, just, copy them? Or was there the thought of, as people walk through the site and and around different buildings, it changes. There's different colors here, there's different landscape features. And, to me, that's what is good design. And that's what makes space is really unique and better when you get that diversity, when you get changes, so that as you come around and maybe you see, you know, a different tree type, a different species, you see different landscape colors. You walk around the corner and you see a different building now, color. Now, I'm not saying wild colors, that kind of thing, but you know, just variation. So it's just nice to see, have discussion on what led that, because that way, you know, was there thought about it and how the building is going to impact the people, which is going to impact the area around it, which frankly is going to impact our community too. So that's why I asked those questions, just to get an understanding of what was the thought behind it. And hopefully there has been enough thought so that those kind of issues have been thought about so that it creates a better place for people. Because I think as we, you know, and as our job as the architectural review, it all does come down to, yes, making sure buildings work together, making sure landscape works together with the community and the neighborhoods around it, and basically make our city of Tualatin a better place. So I don't have any thing to add. I just hope that as this development continues in its detail and the construction, that care is taken to take it to that level for our community.
Thanks, Skip.
I think the only thing that I would like to say is it's nice to see that there's more parking than was required, and having the garages and just the attention to detail for livability of people that will move into our community and be our neighbors. And so it's just something, and again, I'm new to this process, but I appreciate seeing things like that. So. All right, is there any discussion by the excuse me. Okay, final decision. Is there a motion to approve application AR 22-0008?
I'll make the motion to approve the application subject to the conditions of approval.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the application of AR 22-0008 with the conditions of approval as discussed. All in favor of this motion? Are there any questions? No. Okay, discussion. I mean, all in favor, say aye.
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 Against, say nay. Okay, great. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay. Is there any communication from board members to city staff? It's snowing, so that's my communication. Excellent. Okay, adjournment.
Thank you
So
for making
moved.
a trip.
So
Best of luck
moved.
on your ride
Yeah.
home.
Is there a second? Okay, meeting adjourned. Sorry.
Safe travels home.
Yep, thank you. Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining us in virtual land.
Bye now.